Otsukimi here. Who else would it be? This is Observations with Otsu. We're going to take a look at the weekly time frames for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. Going to be a shorter video today because I'm kind of in a push for today for some other things. So purely technical, just bare bones, but still enough to share. Plenty enough to share actually what really is going to go on for the week. And so we'll take a look at that. We had a little bit of a red day today. We'll see how this plays out from my perspective for the rest of the week. And so that's pretty much the introduction, short and sweet. I got a little bit of an announcement coming up, and then we'll get started on the charts. So, very briefly before I begin, I have an announcement. I am rebranding a few things, and I have the logo up here for what I'm rebranding to. This is going to be the Apex Trading Group. Just shorthand will be referred to as the Apex. Something I've been thinking about for some time. Long story short, I have a lot of things out there. I have my Apex Academy. I have my Discord. I have several, X accounts or Twitter accounts. Some of them are my main account, my alt account, my group, my trading group account, other things, videos on YouTube, and everything, scripts. I got bots coming up, and they all have different names and different things and different uses, and it's been a little bit of a mess. Even to the point where I've been a bit confused on some things, but I have been getting some DMs trying to clarify some things. A lot of people have been interested. I've had very few complaints or issues, and that this is why I really love the crypto community, is because you guys are really um, you're very lighthearted in a sense. Like we hear too much about criminal activity and things like that. That has not been the case for me. I think that's boils down to really just where you hang out with. And so most of my interactions have been good. So anyway, this is going to be all condensed or not condensed per se, consolidations and kind of a soft rebrand overhaul into the Apex. And that's basically what that's going to be. So everything's going to get rebranded. The Nowhere Discord, which it used to be called Nowhere, is now going to be called the Apex. And my Nowhere Premium, which is my exclusive private, you know, quote unquote paid group, that's just going to be called the Apex membership. And so very, very simple, very just classy, minimalistic kind of thing. I'm still going to do the Apex scripts. Those are probably going to be transferred into something like algorithms instead, like just different categories. A lot of this is just going to be better naming conventions, better ways to display it, better checkout options, and so a lot of this was being built um, in November, October, November, December of last year. Now that we're about a year into this, I'm refining that process. I'm going to start doing videos. I tested this out. It was overwhelmingly positive where I do my normal videos. So if you're part of my current premium group, you get 5 regular videos. Those are free. Those are for all members, and you get 5 more that are altcoins. And now the biggest issue that I saw is it's hard to translate a 15-minute video, which I do almost every day, and translate that into text. So what I'm doing is I'm taking screenshots and I'm giving these trades, not necessarily screenshots, but I'm giving the charts visually in the channel as well. So you're getting a video, and then complementing that video, you're getting a couple paragraphs. Sometimes it's up to 4 paragraphs, but usually 1 or 2, explaining what I discussed, why I discussed it, and how someone could take advantage of it. From my personal perspective, this is something that I would do for these coins. I'm not telling you to do these things. This is just my personal thoughts on the market for those coins. And then on top of that, I supplement it with the screenshots for the trades to show you what I'm talking about, because I think a lot of people like video, but I think it's also very timely. Like some people don't have the ability to listen and watch a video, but they can look at a screen. So, and I think that that's good. So we'll take a look at that. But it's going to be mainly 5 or 4 things here. The private group membership, I'll probably change this to just membership, but same thing. Got the Apex Academy. That's probably going to come up later sometime this year. I'm still waiting on it. There's a few different things. One, I had a lot of things going on in my life, so I had to postpone. 2, we didn't have it. We didn't have a minimum requirement to launch the academy, and logistically, it was hard for me to launch anyway, so I decided to postpone that, and so it's still happening. Look forward to that later. Trading bots, it's a new thing. I've mentioned certain variations of that before. but they are launching. And so that's going to be, and that was actually one of the key reasons why I tried to rebrand, is because I had, you know, I was trying to decide whether I should call it Arum Pro, Apex, because I have both of those brands. I own ArumPro.com, and so it was very difficult to manage. And so now I'm going to consolidate that. And then we have algorithms, which is basically going to be scripts, but more than scripts too. It's going to be a way to navigate, certain ways to look at the market. I'm probably going to introduce custom scripts that where I can make scripts for you, and so that's still in beta. Just trying to figure that out, but we'll look at that in a later video, of course. But that's just you know took longer than I wanted to discuss this, but this is a rebrand I'm looking at, consolidating, making everything look cleaner and better, and I think more visually appealing from what everybody told me. This is also the X handle for that. So go ahead and go to Apex Trading HQ, and you can check that out as well. So anyway, that's kind of the announcement. Let's just get straight into Bitcoin. All right, so let's take a look at Bitcoin. I discussed this from a daily perspective yesterday in the mini market update. Those will also change as well. If you paid attention to our announcements, I'm going to rebrand the name of that, but that's basically it. It's going to be almost the same thing. But we're going to take a look at the weekly perspective and see how that looks. So I'm actually going to get rid of all this here and take a look at this. Go to the weekly and see how we can navigate this. Now, last week we had a pretty good impressive week. Not overly impressive in as far as the last 2 years, but pretty regionally or locally impressive, especially since we had the drop down. Now, there's a few different things on that. I've discussed variations of this. I don't think it's worth celebrating a big pump like this when we had a big dump before. So that basically, that can be interpreted as a retest or just a pushback or whatever. Like, there's no engulfing here. I'm not a big fan of engulfing candles like a lot of other traders are. Mainly not mainly because of its execution. Like, it's a good determining factor of a momentum change, but not a good factor of execution. And so that's why I kind of eliminate that. I only look at things that I can actually hit the button with. Okay, and that's why I also am not a very big fan of swing failure patterns, because they're not as actionable as you think I'm only looking for actionables, and that's also why you may see I talk very similarly to some traders, but also very differently as well. I talk in very simple terms. I have RSI and I look at EMAs, which is very common. ARUN is very complex, and it's also very rare. It's actually not that complex, but it is. I should say it's very uncommon, and so those are the factors that I work with. Now, as far as this goes, I've said variations of these things before, but from a price action standpoint, I'm looking at this right here. And so this is your swing high order block from this deviation here. This was your distribution top, local top, I should say. This is your deviation. I know I'd get a lot of controversy with this, but I actually think this is the top versus this. Now, this is the actual top. I want to clarify that. But this is a deviation of this top. And so I think that gives you, if you view it that way, that gives you very strong clarification on the market. If you try to inverse this, you can see what I'm talking about. You basically had a divergence here. Or wait, yeah. Yeah, so you had the lower high here, so this was a very clear sign. I know it doesn't do it. I know inverting has its own issues, but this is kind of a better way to look at it. This was a bottom. This was a retest deviation, and so that's one reason why we led to that move. And so if you could look at it from that perspective, I think that gives you better context what I'm saying. So this is the top. This is the deviation from the top. But it's all a top altogether. And that's last cycle, so that's old news anyway. But this gives me context for this. Because now we've kind of flirted with this back and forth. Now we're kind of back in the zone. And so the unfortunate thing is this isn't really well respected. And so another way to look at this would be from here, like so. And so now we have a better context. This is just the wick area from this side. And so, and it actually, floats kind of over to this top a little bit. But now you can see where I'm at. We're kind of retesting this. This is a very complex structure. I don't like this on the weekly. I think as far as, it's better than Ethereum, but it's not as good as Solana. And this gives us a complex market to look at. Now, from a trend perspective, this is going to make more sense. You have your three drives that match together on the trend, and then that's kind of what you're looking at. Okay, you could make a cone shape, something like that, but I'm not really going to. And then on the inverse side, you have this. You have a double retest here, along with this retest staying point. Actually, this kind of goes along all the way here if you really wanted it to. And so after a while, you're just making crap up if you keep going. But I'm going to just put it right here. And so this serves as my continuation pattern. And so this is what I'm looking at. And this is exactly why I'm bullish on Bitcoin right now, because this is a very key continuation pattern. Yes, two weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I was pushing for 52,000. I still think that could happen. So just be careful. If we break down to this red trend line, we are going back to 52,000. And that would also be a failure at the 50. And so if you look down here, this is another reason why I'm bullish, is because on the RSI we are above the 50. We actually tested it twice. We broke above. And so we'll see if we can hold this. There's still a lot of things to be said here about weakness, things like that. But we're kind of in no man's land. I think that the Bulls have a layup chance to make this a good week. Okay, I don't think this is going to be an explosively bullish week, but I think the Bulls have a chance to just make this just a decent week. Not exciting. It could be a bullish chop, right? But just not super bearish. And I think that goes under the radar for some people. Like, we don't need to have a bullish day or bullish week every week. Okay. And I think a lot of people understand the idea behind that. But in practical application, that doesn't mean every week needs to be 10% right. And so, and I think everybody can follow me with that. But what I mean is, like, even like, let's say you have 4 weeks in a row, you have 10%, 5%, 7%, you know, um, and then another 7%. That's not what I'm talking about. That would be too bullish in some sense. It doesn't, and I would love for that to happen, right? But we're still in this consolidation period. As long as we're in this consolidation area, we should expect more of a fluctuation. So I still think, like, you could have that 10% for that first week, let's say. But like, if the next 3 weeks are like up 3%, down 1%, up 1%, that's still bullish. Okay, that is bullish enough to be interpreted as bullish as a whole. And that's something that I think people just don't want to hear. And then they also get, you know, focused on the minutia of everything, where we had the drop down. Like, this was a good example. We had the drop down. I was freaking out because I was on the road, and then it held, and it's fine. Then it went back up, and then it's fine, right? And so, and that does not do it justice, because that was a scary week, but that ended up being a bullish week. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This was a bullish week. How scary of a week that was for us at the moment, but that was a bullish week. Okay, and that's what I'm referring to. Um, you can still have a bullish week and still have chaos, but that leads to something like long term in its success. So Arun, we'll go down to Arun. Got 78% on the bear side, 14% on the downside. So you have a very wide bullish consolidation. Should confirm that we're basically just consolidating upwards. So I'm looking at it maybe like a chop for a couple weeks and then a push up. So I would not be surprised if we don't really pump significantly until mid September. And I think that's okay. We're getting ready to go into Q4, and so Q4 typically is the most explosive, and it certainly looks like this will be the case again, having this consolidation to the end of August, which is basically next week, and then we push up higher with that. Let's go to the daily. So this is that continuation pattern I was kind of showing you. It doesn't really work too much on the daily, so is that going to be respected? It's possible that it won't. So we'll see. But here's the continuation I'm looking at. Had your double top here, your deviation. I've expressed this quite a few times now to where it's probably annoying. Had the deviation below here, push up. Now we have a retest on this zone. So I'm looking for a retest. I mentioned yesterday in the regular mini video that we could retest down to 61.5. Still think that could be the case, but we might get a push up first. I think the time to do that was today, and this is actually holding pretty well. We're down less than 1%, so I think that's pretty good. Bearish consolidation kind of confirms that we can get that drop down. Our size fine. So that's pretty much it for the weekly. I think that we will just chop within the range. I would like to see a break of this, but I think regardless, um, so if we don't break down today, one, I do think that gives us a better chance for bullish conditions the rest of the week. However, that also gives us a chance that we could chop as well, because I do think this should retest. This is a bullish breaker, and bullish breakers get retested about 95% of the time. So we'll see how that goes. I'm looking for a bullish chop of a week, and I think a lot of the data seems to confirm that. So that is Bitcoin on the weekly. Let's go to Ethereum. All right, so we will go to Ethereum. I want to cover this on the weekly first. Had a little bit of a pump here, but pretty insignificant in terms of locally. We're kind of entering this retest point. I've talked about this before, about a middle area of this is about 2870, 2880 is what I've kind of rounded it up to. That's the area of contesting the zone. And so until that happens, this is a bearish retest, unfortunately. I've noticed a big difference between Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. Ethereum is far weaker. It's less effective in its impulses. It's more dramatic in its drop downs. Like so for example, we had three drops down here on the bearish candles, but on Bitcoin we only had one, and so we had an intermittent. We had a bullish, bearish, bullish, bearish, bullish, bearish. So we kind of went back and forth, right? We kind of ping ponged that, where Ethereum kind of had a follow through on the down move, and so we have a series of them. We had one, kind of one after one here, basically, another one here, another one here. So we've had it's much more dramatic in their drops and less effective in the pumps, and that is a sign of weakness. That is also a sign of interest for other coins. I think Solana is a very it is a big participant in secondarily creating that. I also think Vitalik in his recent news over the weekend is going to cause a little bit of a fumble short term. I think a lot of people are, and I mentioned this yesterday in a small video. I am kind of concerned about that. For the most part, he's right. My problem is that it's the attitude, right? And so I 100% agree with him on his vision. I think it's a very high shelf idea that promotes a lot of fruition for the ecosystem and for the chain. So that's good. That's always going to be good. It should be good. The issue is that he very heavily criticized a lot of coins from the past cycle, and that's where I really strongly disagree. Not because he's necessarily wrong. I think a lot of those projects were um, not good. He primarily referred to like the Yam coin, like the yield farming ones, and something like that. And they're not long term successful. But the idea is, for me, the whole point of DeFi, the reason I like it is because it flourished so fast. That is one of the biggest examples of how we had a string of successful projects that people were interested in. Wallet integrations, Uniswap, Aave, things like that. We had a series of them. Like we literally had like hundreds of them. And I remember reviewing quite a bit of them. And one of the reasons I haven't done a lot of reviews for the past 2 years is because there's not a lot of good projects reviewable. We have a lot of meme coins right now. And so a lot of people are really looking back and saying, like, this cycle feels worse. Okay, there's still meme coins, you can still make money from a trading perspective, but from a fundamental perspective, there's not a lot of innovation compared to what there was last year. The only thing really is Solana with the speed, but then it's cultivating meme coins. I'm not dissing meme coins by any means. I have some myself, but my point is the criticism towards the past cycle, I think, is a little unwarranted. I think it should be a given that each cycle, the first few cycles of any ecosystem, is going to be very adolescent. It's going to be a little bit immature. Okay. And, Ethereum Ethereum has been around since 2017, maybe probably a little earlier than that. And that is a long time, yes. But I, I think a better view would be we should look at each cycle better than the previous ones. And so I understand what he's saying. I disagree because I think it's a bit embarrassing for the creator of Ethereum to just bash basically what made Ethereum successful in the first place. And on top of that, this cycle has not given us I cannot think of 5 projects that are have any sort of success on Ethereum right now. And I know somebody's going to hashtag or give me some reply of, here's this awesome project you've never heard about. That's my point. Nobody's heard about it. Okay. I'm not talking about a potential good project that 20 people have talked about and it's growing. That's good. I'm glad it's growing. But there's no big coin right now that's just for the masses. Like LDO doesn't count, I wouldn't say in the traditional sense. I mean, and even so, if it could, try to come up with more than five, or whatever. So it's very frustrating to see the creator of Bitcoin kind of knock down its own success, and I think that can lead to temporary bearish price action on a coin that's already not performing very well. And so we'll see how that plays out. I think it's a little disheartening for me. And I don't think everybody's gonna feel that way, but I think that could have been framed better. So anyway, I think that might lead to some drop down. So anyway, we're kind of stuck here for trade perspective wise. Here's the retest at the 2800 area. We had the retest on the low side at 2500. We're pretty much stuck within that range between 25 and really 29, and so that's a, where we're at. And so we'll just see how that goes. We're basically just in a big retest zone. Like I said, we're performing much, much lower than Bitcoin. And I kind of want to say, even just from the top, I know this isn't fair, but we're still 44% from the top from Bitcoin. Where or from Ethereum, I should say, where Bitcoin is like 10%. And so it's been very clear to me where the R&R is. And I think a lot of people have seen that. And part of this could be, is that part of the cycle? Is because there are parts of the market cycle where Bitcoin just does its thing. And I would probably agree with that. I think that's a fair assessment. And going into Q4, I think that Bitcoin will be much more successful here for the first three of those months, and then the last month, altcoins will really just take off. I would like to see one more good alt run. I really would. And so we'll see if that happens. It's been pretty disappointing so far, relatively speaking. We made some of our money in premium, things like that, and in the trading group itself. And so we'll see if this can continue. But a little lackluster. We have a bullish consolidation to kind of confirm that we could get a push up to 29. We'll see how that breaks out. But the problem also is we have a below on the 40. And so that is a concern. When we have a consolidation like this, but a lower RSI tends to be a little more choppy or higher risk versus like a consolidation here and then above the 50, which is much more bullish in that regard. Let's go to daily briefly here. Not really going to say too much. Just you have the rejection here. Kind of have a wedge here. I did mention in the regular videos how we have a deviation. If we get the deviation, we're probably going to come back to this area here at 2500. We don't want to close below 2500. That's just going to be terrible, but it's looking like a wedge for now. So that's pretty much Ethereum. I'm going to go to Solana to round out the video. All right, let's look at Solana for the weekly. Going to close that up because this is the last coin. And so I like Solana a lot for the weekly for a few reasons. Right off the bat, one, it's been very well performing really ever since the bottom, since 20. A lot of people didn't think it would go up. It was a good, I thought that it would. Went ahead and allocated in response to that, and it's doing good. Now, also too, I think relative to the growth of Solana versus Ethereum, Solana has been like 50, probably not 50, maybe 20 times outperforming in its growth versus Ethereum. It's broken several metrics, sometimes consistently and exponentially on trading fees per 24 hours, volume, market share, things like that. And so with all of that, I think the fact that we're still below the all-time high at 250 makes this cheap. Okay, so first, I kind of want to do this before I do some analysis. So we're about 37% below. So we're a little higher than Ethereum. And so I think there's a great chance that this will hit $600. I've talked about this in other videos. I think 600 is a really good spot. I actually think 1500 is also plausible in this run. And so we'll see how that works out. If that happens to work out, we're doing pretty significant here. I'm just gonna dream a little bit and kind of add this here. Let's go to like 1200. That's like a 7x. So just keep in mind where we're going with that. And so if we go to 15, you're looking at like a 8, almost 9x. So we'll see. But we're about 60% from the current highs right now. If we go to 600, it'll be the last one I do. Looking at about almost a 3x. So that gives you an idea where we're at with that. So I like that of itself. Just fundamentally, I don't talk enough about fundamentals, mainly because people want to associate current day, like I I I think I get misinterpreted actually, because I am very, very vocal about saying short-term price is not indicative of fundamentals. So people try to, they look at a pump or they look at a dump and like say, why is it pumping or dumping? And most of the time that's irrelevant to an actionable trade. Okay, I'm not discussing or criticizing what you may see or what you may not see or what you are being tricked into seeing or not seeing. But what I am telling you is that the people that look at that and the people that actually have an actionable trade are less than 1% of 1%. Okay? And to do that consistently is pretty much impossible. And I've seen people successfully do that for 3 months, 6 months even, but that's it. And it's a one time thing. So now long term is a little bit different. So and I think that's why there's confusion. Long term, I am okay with making some assessments about that. So Bitcoin example, store value. People like it because it's a store value. It's deflationary. It's resistant to regulations and things like that. Ethereum smart contract growth. Solana, you have growth, you get speed, things like that. And so I actually did a post about this on X about the differences of different chains and why that's a good thing and why that's also a healthy thing for the ecosystem to grow. So I'm okay with that. So, but so anyway, we'll get into this now. As far as price action goes, we had a pretty good bullish week overall. Now we have a similar situation with this area. Like there's no, like this is the area that I'm looking at, but there's no match point with this. Like this kind of matches, but not really. And so my whole idea with this is making this kind of two different trends. So you have a trend right here. You also have another trend going here, so almost like a C fork style trend. So we're looking at that, and then we also have this is very well respected as well. And so I'm actually looking at this lower one down here as the initial trend, and then a push up here. So this is very good. I like the setup right here. We also have a good retest point like so. That's holding the zone. And so it's not the cleanest, but when you're dealing with weekly, the trend tends to be more, of a friend than price action anyway. You have a bearish cross, but you had a bullish consolidation, very thin, and the bearish price action has been pretty ineffective in this regard. So I think it's a good sign. Sorry, just looks like we're getting a little bit of a drop down here. Um, and I think that this is good. I think the more that we drop, I know this is going to sound bad, but the more that we drop today, the better it's going to be for the rest of the week. I'm pretty sold on that. So, but the weekly here, it is consolidating upward, and so I'm looking for a consolidation push, and so we might actually wait till late September before we get that push. And don't fret about that because we might not see anything above 200 until like October, but then we could rally 200% from the rest of the year or 300%. So don't the longer the consolidation, the larger the impulse. So keep that in mind. So it's kind of like when you shake a soda bottle. The longer you shake it, the more it's going to explode when you finally let it go, or it'll explode on its own. So here with RSI, you got the 50 double 50 bounce similar to Bitcoin, and so it's holding. As long as it holds, I'm pretty good. I'm a big fan of holding spot on RSI 50 or above, and so this is kind of strange, but like if you held from here you would have held it basically like 20, 25 bucks roughly, and then you would have sold here, um, even on a conservative level at 100, 125, 129. So roughly a 5x. Pretty good. I think that's pretty good. You would have got chopped here, but very insignificant relative to that. And I think if you don't know how to trade really, the 50 RSI on the weekly is very good. From historically, I'm not saying you're not guaranteed to make money, and I'm not suggesting to do that. But in my experience, 50 RSI on the weekly has been a very good long term look, because if I waited here at the cross, and if we got here, that would have been even just as low. You're looking at September, early October to basically June. So you had what, 8 months? You didn't have to do anything for 8 months, and you got a 5x. It's pretty good. Pretty good. Let's go to the daily to kind of round this out. have your you have your continuation pattern. Not much else other than that. I've looked at this from a fib perspective. That we're kind of, where are we at here? I think, yeah, from this zone, from the top of this level here. So we're roughly at the middle. We kind of rejected a little bit. We need to get above that zone 165. I've been vocal about that as well. And so if we can get above that zone, if we can get above 165 on the daily close, I think there's a great chance that we definitely come back here to the zone at 178, and then we go through the C fork on the way to 190, 195. And so we'll see how hard it is to get back to 200. But I think it's good. I think the best option to look at Solana is from a long-term perspective. I actually don't really swing trade Solana that much. My biggest altcoin bag is Solana, and it's something I've held for since 20 bucks. 20. I think the highest was like 24 or whatever. So, and I think I sold some at 180 when I bought, but I've since bought it back. So that's worth holding, because, or it's worth, or I shouldn't say that. I should say, like, the long-term perspective is a better consideration, because we have these fluctuations, because it's just kind of easier in that regard. You don't want to get lost in the chop on something that you don't want to get lost in a chop for something that has probably the best chance in the market to go 3x to 8x. Okay, I mean, you have a high chance knowing that if any coin that's going to have that success, it's going to be Solana. It's not even going to be Bitcoin. You think Bitcoin is going to go 8x this cycle? Doubt it. Strong doubt it. That's almost 500,000 a coin. But with Solana, I have doubts that Bitcoin might even go 3x. But Solana has an easy chance to go 3x up to 8x. So we'll see how that goes. So anyway, that is Solana. I'm going to do a quick summary to round the video. All right, so overall, just kind of a quick recap. Bitcoin had the break above the zone. From the daily perspective, we're looking for this retest between this range of 65.5 and 61.5 roughly. So for the weekly, this looks pretty good, but we need to cross above these three drives and at least get over the 66,000 marker to give us some momentum. RSI is holding good. Consolidation is favor in Arun for bullish momentum. Ethereum, different story. Very faded and kind of limpy and wimpy, or whatever you want to call it. Like, even though we've had a bullish consolidation, we haven't had a follow through. Significantly bad in its patterns as well. We have a falling or rising wedge here, which means this could be shortable here in just a few. Failure of the RSI 50, or rejection, I should say. And so everything is kind of pointing to this being much weaker. Even if we get a bullish momentum, Ethereum is going to be the weakest of the three. And unless you're actively trading it consistently for some habitual reason, I think Ethereum is not even worth trading. I really don't. Bitcoin and Solana are going to give you far better potential rewards with easier methods to do it with. With Solana, we have a push up to the zone. We're kind of in the halfway point of this local area here. This is a consolidation. Doesn't look like distribution to me so far. And this is a good sign here with all this Arun fluctuations. So I'm looking for you have a C fork pattern here, looking for a break of this, for initial break of 165 with 175 at this initial C fork area, and 195 for the larger one, eventually to break 200. So it's kind of a staggered trend resistance. Is very complicated to get through. So hopefully we can get through that. And I think that's going to take longer. I think the only problem with Solana right now is that might take about a month to do, but then once we break through it, we're going to probably see a very fast impulse that you will probably not have time to get into. So anyway, that's the video. Let me know what you think. I'm happy to discuss things more. Please check into the Apex trading and rebrand and all that stuff. I would be glad to have you. We're going to have some special things to give out in response of a new, the new announcement for September. So, yeah, look forward to that. Follow that channel earlier in the video if you haven't. That's the video. Let me know what you think. Have a good night.